Hey there, this is Ben Currier, self-proclaimed world's #1 failure. In this podcast, we'll learn about the hardest moments my guests faced and the failures they endured on their path towards making it. I hope you enjoy. Hey there, friends of failure. This is Ben Currier here, and I am hanging out with my friend here, Dylan Ogline. Hey there, Dylan.
Hey, man. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Before we get into the subject of the podcast, do you want to give the listeners maybe a little shameless brag about some of the highlights of your career or lifestyle?
Shameless brag. Okay. So, man, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to the bragging part. I guess, okay, if we're going to be bragging, I own a 7-figure digital marketing agency called Ogline Digital. I hate to sound so cliche, but I kind of do live like my dream version of my lifestyle, like my dream version of my life. I kind of live now. It's hampered a little bit with COVID. Can't really travel. But if there wasn't COVID or once COVID's over, I get to, I have a successful business. I have an incredible team in place. I could easily get away with working 1 to 2 hours a week on my main business, my marketing agency, and just travel around the world. So I guess you said, that is my shameless brag.
Nice. I think you've said you're kind of a digital nomad, but are you in a fixed location right now? Or are you still traveling?
Right now, no, I haven't been outside the United States since 2019. Yeah, I did not go outside the United States this year. But no, like, yeah, I live in Orlando right now. I have a house here. And I definitely want to have a home base no matter what. But once, COVID's over, once vaccines, everybody has them, definitely be 3 to 4 months out of the year on the road traveling constantly.
I'm definitely envious of that. I've only done a little bit of traveling here and there, like backpacking across Europe and stuff, but it is easier than people think to carve out the time, but we just don't usually set aside the mental space for planning something like that. And hopefully after all this is over, it'll get better.
I try not to plan when I'm doing any kind of traveling. I try to just go. Like those have been the trips to the best, when I'm just like, hey, I'll figure it out when I get there. Maybe I have an Airbnb, but that's the best kind to me.
Yep. I had a previous guest who was a digital nomad, and he said the best advice is just to book a one-way ticket and don't think about it and don't plan it as much. So, so that's definitely the mentality you have to get behind. It can be hard for people though, for sure. And what oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, it is, it's a lot easier than what you think. And it is, if it is something that if you have that itch, if you're sitting there like, wow, that sounds cool. It's because it doesn't apply to everybody. There's some people who they don't want to travel outside the United States, or they don't like flying or whatever. That's 100% okay. But if you're sitting there and you have that itch and you're like, wow, that sounds incredible, you have absolutely no idea just how incredible it is. Life's too short, man. Right now, we all got to play safe. I'm not jumping on any planes to Southeast Asia right now because of COVID. Got to be safe. But once this stuff is over, once the world returns to normal, just jump, just do it. Life's too short.
I think the great thing about the whole COVID thing is it definitely has proven that we can work from home, and that home can be anywhere, in the future. So when we do get able to travel, I'm sure it'll be a lot easier for people to embrace that kind of lifestyle, because a lot more companies are open to the idea of remote workers and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. There was definitely a stigma. I would still get weird looks from people. They're like, how do you make any money working from home? Even though it's become, even before COVID, it was becoming more and more common. People still looked at me like I was weird. But now, like, everybody was forced to work from home. So yeah, like that stigma is over. Going forward, a lot more people are going to be doing it. And I think it would be worth mentioning when I'm talking about traveling, I'm not looking to go to some resort for a week and just sit on the beach and drink pina coladas. Like, to me, it's going and living in a foreign city where I don't speak the language. I know nobody. I know nothing. Know nothing around me. and living there for several weeks on end, immersing myself in the culture while I still work. That is, to me, the digital nomad lifestyle. And that's what it's all about, is being able to do what you want, when you want, where you want. And once like I said, if you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, that sounds pretty cool, like, you have absolutely no idea just how amazing it is.
Yeah, I'm jealous of it myself. I know when I went to France, I remember one of the funny stories was I took Spanish in high school, so I really didn't know much of anything for French, and I was told the way to say sorry was "je suis désolé," but I think some of my Spanish kicked in or whatever, and I kept saying "je suis déjeuner," which I think is I'm breakfast or something to do with breakfast. I'm not really sure, but I remember the crazy looks I was getting from the people when I was over there. But I agree, if you're going to do travel, you want to be really immersed in the culture and not doing it as an arm's length kind of a thing where you can just kind of dip your toe into what it would be like to be near them. It's nice to see how different people live and like the perspectives that they have and the things you can gain in terms of insight. It's awesome.
Absolutely. You'll learn, like, people tend to, the world's not as bad as you think it is. I come from more of a conservative area. So I kind of had this vision that, like, the outside the United States was scary and everybody was going to stab you or steal your money. Once you go there, bad things can happen, but generally speaking, it really shocked me just how nice people are, how it's the complete opposite of what you think. And people tend to be nicer than what they are here in the United States.
Yeah, they can break down some of that like nationalism or us versus them kind of stuff when you just realize it's other people in a different part of the world usually.
For me, another a really life-changing element of it was, I've been in places where I make more in a day than these people make in several years. And they're so happy with their lives. And it kind of puts everything in perspective of like, dude, what are you complaining about? Like, it really, and it makes you appreciate life more. It makes you appreciate life, makes you appreciate other people, it humanizes everything, gives you a lot more compassion for your fellow human, other people in your country, other people worldwide. It's definitely well worth it.
And in your online marketing business, I'm curious, just what kind of actual stuff are you doing? Is it mostly SEO and digital marketing and trying to figure out how to increase brand awareness, or what is your niche?
Our niche is direct response digital marketing. So in English, we are simply managing our clients' Facebook, Google, and sometimes YouTube ads. That's it. We just, we create the landing page. Typically, we're going to write the actual ad. We're going to choose like the picture for Facebook, etc. And then our job is to spend the money and get the leads, essentially, at a certain cost. That is pretty much what our job is. How do we make money? We send the client an invoice for 10% of whatever their ad spend was at the end of the month. So if they spend $50,000 throughout Google, Facebook, YouTube, we will send them an invoice for $5,000.
That sounds like a really good deal, because I know I've put plenty of ads out there that had no response because I have no idea what I'm doing. And it can be easy to think, I'll just throw a little money at it and whatever, throw a sentence or two up or some picture, but it's a lot more. It's really difficult to convince people, especially nowadays, to give you their attention and their time, because there's so many things battling for it. And I know, as a guy who just works by himself and doesn't know anything, that just how hard that advertising part is, because I can do the content that's good behind the paywall, but figuring out how to get people to want to get past that is tough. And certainly generally ads are even harder, because it's they're doing something else and you're just trying to get their attention away from whatever that is.
Absolutely.
Have you had any big ad campaigns that failed miserably? I'm curious if anything like that has happened to you because you thought, oh, this is a great idea, and then it resonated with no one or something to that effect.
Happens all the time.
Good. Okay, so that's a normal part.
All the time. Yeah. So when we're onboarding a new client, which we're really small, I try not to. I don't want more clients right now because they once I got to 7 figures, I was like, I don't really want anymore.
Yeah.
I want to focus on other passions. But when it's, we're constantly, even the clients that we have that are doing great, we're constantly running tests for them. So like a Facebook test might look like throwing up like 600 different versions of a concept,
Mm-hmm.
different targets. You have 5 different versions of pictures, 4 different versions of the actual ad copy, and then all these different variable targets. So you might throw up 600 different ads and like 20 of them are actually successful and have a positive ROI.
Mm-hmm.
That happens all the time. And then you just copy those ones that works and try to create even more iterations. That's how we do it. So it's typically not, we spent $50,000
Yeah.
for a client and didn't get anything. It's typically we're testing things at as small as level as possible. And then once we figure out things that work, then we ramp it up and scale.
That makes a lot more sense. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there like me who are going, why didn't my one type of ad work? The one try, my one slogan that I came up with. But yeah, variant testing and AB and AB plus, however many variants is certainly a good way. I've been told to not only do ads, but email marketing, landing pages, all of that, because you can use the info. My problem is I never get to the point of using the info that I get back. So I'm working my way towards figuring out how to get some of that working for me, because to your point, there's a lot of tools we can use to take out a lot of the complexity.
Absolutely. And one thing I would mention when it comes to, if we're specifically talking marketing here, most people, they it happens all the time when I talk to people. They're like, I spent $50 on Facebook and it didn't work. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's not so that we need to spend $50,000, but if you spent $100 and you got like $40 in sales back, that's incredible. Like, that's a really, like, if your first campaign, you spent $100 in 3 days and you got $40 back in sales, you just hit a home run. Like, that was incredible, because nobody does great their first ad. Mm-hmm. Nobody does great with their first variations. And if you just, you took that and then you did another $100 and maybe you got $60 back, you're still losing money. That's okay. But you keep doing that, and eventually you get where you spend $100 and you got $110 back. Mm-hmm. And then you spend another $100 and you got $150 back. And before you know it, you're spending $100 and you're getting like $400 back. But yeah, if you spent $20 on Facebook ads and it didn't work, I kind of wonder why. Like, there's your
it's
sign.
A pretty low sample size to base your decision on.
Yeah, you got to be committed to just beating it until it works.
So how did you get into the business of online marketing and digital advertising? I know when we talked a little bit in the virtual green room, you told me that basically you spent a lot of time not knowing what you were going to do. You were kind of 12 years a slave to nothing and no specific ideas as to what you were going to do.
So I started my first business when I was 14. And wow. This was back, this was what, 2003, 2002, 2003, around there. So this was like the infancy of what we consider digital marketing. Mm-hmm. I don't even think Facebook had launched yet. Facebook was wasn't even a twinkle in Mark Zuckerberg's eyes yet. So Facebook ads certainly wasn't.
Yeah, that came out later.
But this was, I remember playing around with Google for my first business. It was, I don't know if it was called Google AdWords at the time, but it was Google Ads. That was just blew my mind. Because I saw, even at that age and like just reading about it, like I saw where this was going, where there was an infinite number of people on Google who are searching for stuff. And you can measure this stuff. This is not throwing up a billboard where you're like, did I get more business or not? Like you're gonna be able to spend $100 and know that I got $110 back. And from a marketing perspective, like that is, you're playing in the big leagues now. You can track your growth and you can purchase growth. So that just shocked my world. So I started my first business, and then that got shut down because my merchant account provider found out I was under the age of 18.
What was the business?
I was selling cell phones on eBay, and I think I had was it GeoCities? I had like a Yahoo shopping thing too. But basically this was before like the iPhone, and any pre-smartphone, like any kind of good smartphone was European made, and like in the United States we just didn't have them.
Yeah, the Nokia brick with the snake.
Maybe that snake. I used to be able to send a text message without looking at my phone. You'd have the muscle memory from the buttons.
Or the T9 or whatever. When you had to click whatever TUV. Each number was a different set of letters.
Back in the day. So anyways, I somehow applied for like a wholesale website where they wholesale these cell phones, and somehow they approved me. So then I was able to get these European cell phones at wholesale costs, ship them to the United States, pay all the fees and everything, and then flip them on eBay, make like $50, $75 a phone or something like that. That lasted for about a year, got shut down. And then
did you have like a lot of inventory or something that you're stuck with? Or?
No, it was, I basically drop shipped it.
Okay.
So, I mean, essentially it was on demand. So it wasn't until I sold the phone that it would be shipped to me. And I would tell people like, it'll take 3 weeks to get to you.
Gotcha.
And then I would like overnight it to them. So that got shut down. And at the time I had dropped out of high school. So I kind of really was running out of options. But I had learned a little bit about web design, learned a little bit about like I could design a logo and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I spent the next 12 years getting absolutely nowhere, bouncing around from one project to the next. We talked about this pre-show where like I didn't really have any failures that went out in a blaze of glory. It was more like just a marathon of failure, just little things that just never got off the ground. At my peak, I had like 10 to 15 different business projects. And it was like I was working 1,000 hours a day. I didn't know what sleep was. I looked fried and burnt out, and because I never went on vacation, was absolutely broke, nearly $1 million in debt.
Wow!
And then I had a conversation with a long-term mentor, and essentially the lesson was focus on a high profit margin business and focus. Like that's it.
Yeah. Don't have 10 to 15 businesses.
Yeah. Instead of having 10 to 15 businesses, just have one. Mm-hmm. So I remember the night I had that conversation, I went down and stared down into my freezing basement office where I didn't have a chair. I sat on a 5-gallon bucket of drywall compound. I have a picture of it somewhere. And
how long did you use that bucket? How long did you sit on the bucket? I feel like you could find anything to sit on, but I hope you didn't spend more than a couple of days. I mean, like
a long time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, like a free recliner on the side of the road that was really beat up would be better, I would imagine. But
probably, yeah.
I had other concerns at the time.
I wouldn't have known how to get it home. I drove around in a Jetta. So I feel like I don't know.
That makes sense.
But looking back, I was like, man, I probably could have found something on Craigslist.
Yeah.
But anyways,
that you.
Oh yeah, it sucks. I still have back issues from it.
I was wondering. I had a question about part of your story. How soon after starting to make money online did you drop out of high school? Was it like, hey, I got $1, see ya, or was it more of like a gradual thing that you were like, I don't have to do this anymore, kind of thing?
So long story short, I was starting to think about college, and I knew that I didn't know specifically what, but I was like, I want to kind of do something business. And I'm from a small country rural town in Pennsylvania, and the prospect of my parents paying for college, like that wasn't going to happen. So my only ticket out was hockey. but I wasn't that good. I'm really trying to condense this story here. So what I realized is all the players that were much better than me had started way earlier than me. So I was like, man, like it's a long shot for me to get a scholarship to go to college. I know my parents can't afford to send me to college. What if I were to somehow do this business thing and be ahead of the game? So I'm starting to take these business classes like in high school, like my I think I started them in ninth grade. And I only ever end finishing ninth grade. I quit halfway through 10th. But I was taking these business courses and like it was stuff that like I had read like 4 business books and I was like, you're teaching, like I know way more than the teacher does, and I've read a couple books. So I was like, damn, like in my 14-year-old mind, I was like, if I were to somehow get into business now, 10 years from now, when everybody else is getting out of college and they're starting their careers, I'm going to be 10 years ahead of you. I'm going to have this massive experience gap. So like I'm 31 now. I have 17 years of business experience. Like I'm 31. Like that's more than half of my life.
Impressive.
And I saw that to somehow, some way. And listen, this is really stupid. Don't do this. If you're 14, don't quit school. Like finish high school.
I think the people who would do good in school and would do well dropping out would do well in either one regardless. So I think it depends on the very specific person. I wouldn't say anybody should or shouldn't drop out of anything, but you should definitely, try your hardest. And if you find a way outside of school, you can always do both at the same time. You don't have to drop out of school, but you did it. So, and it seemed to have, at least for a while, worked, or maybe not. The bucket didn't sound glorious.
No, it wasn't glorious. But no. So I convinced my parents. So I had the cell phone business. I think I was doing a few other things. And I convinced my parents to let me do homeschooling. And I was like, oh yeah. Then I'll be able to focus on the business. Like I'm making more than they are. And I'm like, yeah, just trust me, guys. So I had to pay like a couple $1,000s to do the homeschooling. It was completely different than what it is today. Mm-hmm. So I bought all the books and stuff, and I don't even think I ever opened the box that the books came in. Like I just never opened it. Once I started the homeschool, like I just went 100% into business. I might have just messed around and taken. That's
I like token.
Lack of education. I might have taken a test or two, but that was it. And eventually I was just like, listen, guys, like I finally got the business rolling. Can I just quit? So I'm not even wasting my time looking at this stuff. And they were like, okay. So that was it. And I quit.
If you could now talk to a younger you, the one who is quitting, is there any specific advice you'd give yourself to like make it easier, the trajectory?
I don't particularly. I've gotten asked this a lot before. Mm-hmm. I don't particularly like looking back because I think about like that stupid bucket and how it wasn't glorious. Mm-hmm. I don't know if. Like I feel now I've kind of got things kind of maybe figured out a little bit and maybe I'm doing, okay. But it's also like compassion and appreciation and gratitude and things like that. If I had figured it out, way back then, would I be the same person I am now? And I don't know the answer to that. So I really try not to think in terms of that. If I was talking to somebody else who's 14 and they're thinking about it now, would be stay in school, don't be me, and focus. You can't, even though you think that the path to success is working 100 hours a week, the path to success is more likely working smart and focusing on a high profit margin business.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because a lot of people do what you did, and it happens a lot when I ask a similar question, which is as if time travel is real and we can somehow ruin our own existence. But I would hope the idea behind it would be if you what advice would have been beneficial for you, even if you wouldn't want to give it to yourself or you wouldn't want to take it, I guess, for other people in the same situation. But it's kind of a confusing question, and I kind of want to figure out a way to either incorporate time travel more or figure out an easier way to ask it. But there is something cool as a guest of this show that you get, which is a get out of fail free card. So this is a card similar to the Monopoly one where you can use it to go down the path of another career or hobby or interest or something that you might have avoided because of the possibility of failure. Maybe it was hockey, if that was something you wanted to do, and if there was no failure, you might, have pursued that more. But perhaps there's many other different kinds of hobbies or things that you think would be a super interesting thing to pursue, and if you didn't have to worry about the failure of it, you'd go forward with it.
So you're asking what would if I didn't have to worry about failure, what would I go
Yes.
forward with?
Yeah. I'll give you my example would be either like stand-up comedy or music. A lot of things that are where you're like getting judged heavily. If I didn't have to worry about that, I feel like I could approach it better.
My answer surely would have changed over time.
Mhm.
Where I sit now, um, uh, so I've talked about gratitude and everything, and I look at myself, and then I'm very lucky to be where I am. My goal now is to try to help other people and help other folks start their businesses and whatnot. But where my answer would be politics. My
Nice.
answer would be politics. Not because I'm scared to fail necessarily. For me, it's more just like I feel like I feel like the world could be a little bit better. I believe I could maybe help make it a little bit better. I believe the world could use a little bit more compassion.
Absolutely.
sure as hell have that. And but it's just so dirty.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting and dirty, and it's gotten out of hand. So I'm not necessarily scared of failing and like losing an election per se.
Yeah.
I'm scared of like just getting into the mess.
Yeah.
But that
makes
would be
sense.
my answer.
I think you either have to be an amazingly generous, awesome person to go into politics, or a insane egomaniac. And there's not a whole lot because to your point, you have to do a lot of crazy things with not only your own persona and who you are outwardly, but then all the things that are going to happen from people attacking you and going into all the negativity. It'd be nice, and I have no idea how it would happen, if there's a way to divorce the negativity out of politics so we could talk about the issues divorced from a lot of that emotion, but it seems like it's impossible and getting even harder these days. Yeah.
It's getting worse, not
so I
better.
think that'd be a good way to use it, because then if success is guaranteed, hopefully you'd have less of that aspect of it, and you could focus on what matters, and hopefully that success would be also those changes you mentioned about compassion and things like that.
Absolutely, man.
What is the next big fail that you're going to do? What is the thing you're trying to now? Are you going to form a nonprofit? You mentioned you want to give back. Is there something you're going to pursue that you haven't yet started?
Is right now my main focus, what I'm putting 95% of my time into, is my education company. Basically, I have a training program where I teach people how to start their own digital marketing agency. So I'm already in the middle of doing that.
Like a train the trainer kind of thing?
Yeah, something like that.
Nice.
So I don't know what comes after that. I don't know. Maybe it is. I think about starting a nonprofit, but the truth is that I don't have any experience in that. I don't know. Those are fields I've never played in, and I don't know anybody who plays in those fields, whether it is public service or it is a nonprofit or something like that, or it's organizing people to empower them and make change on the world. We live in a democracy. I believe if you gather people and we we come together, we can enact change and make the world a better place. But I have no, and this is something I've thought about for years, but I have no experience and I don't have anybody in my circle. So I thought maybe going into this previous election, that maybe I would somehow get involved, but COVID kind of got me to not do that.
Yeah.
So maybe the next one, maybe the nonprofit. I don't know. I don't have an answer for what's next.
That's cool though. I think it's hard to your point about nonprofits and how to give back. Like I wish it was as easy as just, well, I don't have much money to give to people, but let's pretend that I was richer and wanted to give back. It'd be cool to just pay for people's groceries at the grocery store and do other random acts of kindness that isn't like forming a 501c3 or whatever and trying to come up with a way of having it be all above board. Like it's more fun to just be randomly generous.
Yeah, I've done that myself, man, and it's a fucking awesome feeling.
Yeah, and then how do you take that feeling and then scale that to a larger thing? It usually gets complicated and weird, but that's kind of the fun challenge of what you're talking about, is figuring out ways to give back that still feels that good, but isn't isn't all red tape and everything.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, but I would add this. I think this is important for your show is, if you were to ask me 5 years ago, like, where are you going to be in 5 years? I would not answer this. I would not answer where I am now. I would have absolutely no idea. So, and I continuously see that happen in my life. So where will I be 5 years from now? I don't know. Maybe I'm in public service. Maybe I started a rock band, which for anybody who knows anything about me, they'd be like, no, like, I don't know. I don't play an instrument. I don't sing, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I moved to China. I couldn't tell you. I've learned to like.
Sometimes that's the best way to live life is knowing that it's a choose your own adventure and you don't know what that page is going to hold till you get there. But having, low expectations and high hopes, I've always found is a good way to go.
Oh, absolutely, man. Always have the best hopes. And I like that, like, choose your own adventure. I believe that you can choose how you want your life to go. Not very few things are actually chosen for you. So get out there, man. If you we started this show talking about travel. Like, if that's what you want to do, go do it. You only get 70, 80 years if you're lucky. Could end tomorrow. Stop wasting your life not doing things that you're passionate about, working some dead end job that you hate, being in a bad relationship that doesn't make you happy. Like, don't waste your life doing that stuff. If I could somehow like shake a lot of people and be like, don't be stupid like that, I think that would be a really good thing. If you want to enact change in the world, there's something that upsets you or you think could be better in the world. Like, put your voice out there. And this is advice for myself too.
Yeah.
Put your voice out there and find a goddamn way to enact that and to put change out into the world. And don't just let life happen to you. Make life happen.
Yeah. Most of the advice,
that's good advice,
that I give on this show is advice that I probably should be taking myself, and maybe I'm not. And I think it's easy for us, like you're saying, to put ourselves in a box and pretend like that box is inescapable, the relationship, the job, whatever it is. But usually the years or whatever that you spend doing the thing you don't want is far worse than the whatever that ripping the Band-Aid off feeling actually is. We can convince 100%. Ourselves that there's no option. And it's, once you just open your mind a bit, you realize that there's a lot of options.
And every time I've ever gotten over one of those situations in my life, it is, and I've talked about this with friends before, like, it is remarkable the amount of suffering. And then I ripped that Band-Aid off, and it was like an hour or two of work or something. Like, it was, for years I was like, this is going to be this massive thing, and it's going to take months to solve or whatever. And then I took action on it, and it was like, I procrastinated for years on end. And then I took action, and ripping the Band-Aid off was literally like an hour's worth of work. And it was like, oh my God, that just changed my life.
Yeah.
That has happened time and time and time and time and time again. So you would be surprised if there's, whether it's a business idea or a bad relationship or some job or something, like, don't waste your life in fear of ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Just do it.
You can spend literal years just mustering up the courage to do that thing that literally would take less than a day to figure out all the ramifications of and experience. But we just build things up so much, and the more we make it something that we are scared of and think we can't, the more we tell ourselves that we can't do it, it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's scary, of course. And the easier way to do it is to have nothing and then have to do whatever. If you lose everything, sometimes you get a free pass to write your own story and do whatever. But to people who, have a mediocre job or life and want to make something better, there's not a lot stopping you besides yourself, getting in the way usually.
Really, there is only yourself stopping you. Like, I see that with my personal life time and time again. And I have, especially now that, I have the education company and I'm teaching students. Like, it is incredible the amount of people that live their lives that way. Yeah. And like, that might come across as condescending, but like, I did it too.
Yeah.
This is a lesson I learned myself by making the mistake myself. So yeah, don't waste your life. There you go. There's the lesson.
And it's amazing to me because I think what we're saying, while it would still kind of fundamentally be true 40 or 50 years ago, now with the internet, it's insane how much more ability people have. You don't have to spend $1 or $2 per ad for, per person, like for Yellow Pages or whatever the hell they were doing, direct mail marketing. It's insane how much technology has allowed almost anyone to be a business owner. Whereas, 50 years ago, they would take a lot more investment from yourself. Now you can start a website for free, do all sorts of things, try to get sales before you even have a product. Like, there's a lot of ways to do stuff that now is just so insanely easy compared to what the same thing would do or cost even 50 years ago.
Even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Even last 10 years ago. And yeah, it's getting cheaper and cheaper every day. Yeah. It's getting easier and easier. The access to information and education gets better and better.
Yeah.
One thing that I am really excited about is with education. So you go back just a couple years ago, and it was, you would take, say, training programs similar to like what I have, and the training programs would be very broad. Now there's so many of them that they're getting very niche down. Mm-hmm. So if you want to start a wedding photography business, I guarantee you that there is somebody who has a training program out there that teaches you everything you need to know to start and grow a wedding photography business. Mm-hmm. Guarantee it's somewhere. I don't know who it is, but I guarantee that there's a program out there that talks about, like, how do we onboard clients? How do we actually, take the pictures? How do we handle bookkeeping? How do we get clients? How do we do the marketing? How do we handle our Instagram? There's programs for literally just about everything now. And that really excites me because, that now, we've had access to information, but it was still kind of all over the place. But now people are creating their own programs and be like, hey, I solved this problem, so now you can learn after me. And I think that's going to help a lot of people. Yeah.
And it's not even one, there's thousands of those wedding photography classes because and so you have a good bit of competition to allow you to pick something that's not even just the random one that it happens to be. I teach Microsoft Excel online. And I know there's a lot of people who do that as well. It's amazing how many people are trying to teach different things, and that just makes it better for everyone, because education used to be something that was kind of, well, not only certainly forced on you by, the public education system and everything, but it lacked a lot of enrollment, which is the students wanting to be there and be involved. But now with these kind of training programs, the people who are seeking them out want to learn these things so it can improve not just what's, quote unquote education, but actually improve the amount of learning that's being done. And so it's not just for a test so you can memorize and forget, but so you can actually learn the skill and
Take
not go
action.
into debt too for it. Because I know in college and undergraduate and graduate that I did not learn almost anything about Excel, and that's all I do in my job. So it's insane to me how much money I'm still paying for the training that didn't really give me what I
Didn't
needed
do
for the
anything.
job. So I'm sometimes envious of folks like you who left education earlier on, but also I needed that structure to feel like I knew how to get anywhere. I was too believing in the system in order to have wanted to carve my own path, So I needed to realize the system was bullshit from the inside in order to finally feel like I could go do something else, because I would have been too scared doing it the kind of the way you did. But I definitely envy that kind of gusto and risk taking.
Oh, well, if you're talking about risk taking when it comes to like starting a business or something like that, you got to be a little bit crazy. That's for sure.
Yes.
But no, I understand what you're saying. But
It's cool because and then we both might make it to the same place, but with very different paths of how to get there. And
whatever works, man.
yeah. So before we get in any kind of plugs or anything like that, is there anything else on the topic of failure you want to mention before we tell people where to find you?
So we talked about this a little bit before the show. About what was the term you used? Glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it's important for people to recognize that what I like about your show is that it's not just talking about the success and painting this incredible picture. For those of you out there who might be sitting there thinking like, well, yeah, this person, they have incredible work ethic, or they are really smart, or you can make excuses for yourself because you typically, when you're hearing about other people, you're hearing the best version.
Mm-hmm.
You're not hearing about the bad days. You're hearing about the good days. And that's why I do like talking about, I'm not afraid to talk about the fact that I dropped out of high school, because I don't want people, sitting there who are like, well, you need to have an education to be successful. And I didn't have an education. So like, I'm never going to be anything. I like talking about how I spent 12 years bouncing around and failing, because a lot of people, we all hear about the 10-year overnight success stories, but nobody really talks about the 10 years of taking forever to get things going before you actually get it to click. I might have a 7-figure business now, but I spent 12 years barely making 40 grand a year, like if that.
Yeah.
Being up to my eyeballs in debt. So I think it's important for people to recognize that when you're hearing stories about others, looking for inspiration, just always remember that nobody hits a home run their first at bat. If you have failed yourself, if you have had failures, realize that that's okay, and you just have to pick yourself up, keep going, and recognize that anybody who any successful story that you hear, those people did the same thing. And they also have bad days too. There's days where they sleep in. They're not 100%.
They lose money.
They lose money. They have a bad marketing campaign. I mean, just anything. Recognize that the very best person, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, they aren't much different than you. Like no matter what you see in the media, no matter what you see in the webinars or the videos or listen to on the podcast, like you could be homeless and you are not much different than Elon Musk. And at the end of the day, you're going to choose your version of life. And it is a pick your own adventure. So choose, there's no reason to settle, and go out there and give 100%.
Yeah, I think it's especially important nowadays with social media when everybody now has a highlight reel, and even not successful people have just their, you know, all the things they want people to think that they're doing and feeling, and everyone is kind of hiding a lot of those failures or stumbles. And we get to curate how we look online, and it's important for people to realize that it's not what we see people showing is not all that there is, and a lot of times that um, to your point, those I was on a podcast recently called Broken Bulbs, and it's all about the broken bulbs that led to that good idea that actually worked. All the
Mhm.
and you can't do that. You can't get there without the failures. You can't get there without trying those things that don't work. And it's amazing. I've been trying a lot lately to be a lot more intentional with when I do have a success, figuring out all the pieces of it that I would have messed up if I didn't mess up other things in the past. Like all the pieces that prior failures said, okay, don't make sure you don't send that email before you check whatever, all the links or whatever. There's all sorts of things that you learn from doing it the wrong way. And
Yeah.
it's sometimes just the best teacher. But a lot of times when we succeed, we don't think about all the little things that we learned through the failures. We just think, oh, we're awesome in that moment, for a little bit. But really that's what life is you're stacking up a lot of failures in order to, I say fail it till you nail it, but really try to figure out what is this thing? How do I get better at doing it? And usually that's by being bad at it for a while and, trying.
Yeah. I mean, and this can apply to so many things in life. We were talking, a pre-show about your podcasts and everything. And I've talked about this on other shows where, if you're starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or something like that, it's okay to look for inspiration. Like who's the number one podcast? I think it's Joe Rogan, right?
Probably.
He's on like show 1600. like, like that's a lot of shows. You don't expect your third episode to be as quality of production as his 1600. He might be getting Elon Musk and Kanye and whoever on his shows, but like he's on show 1500 or whatever. Your first episode's gonna suck. Your first video is going to be terrible. It's okay to look at these people for inspiration, but a lot of success is just beating on your craft over and over and over again. Whether it's a podcast and just continuously putting episodes out there until the 800th episode gets really good, or putting out YouTube videos until the 310th episode actually gets 10,000 views, or a marketing campaign where you just keep beating on it and beating on it and beating on it until you finally get it to be profitable. Realize that very few people, there's a wide gap. No, let me back that up. There is a colossal difference between skill and talent. Talent you have naturally. Very few people are talented at anything. Like very few people have talent. When you're looking at somebody that's skilled, whether it's a really good interviewer for a podcast, whether it's somebody who makes great videos, whether it's somebody who writes great ads, whether it's somebody who's a great writer, that's a skill. And the only way that you get good at those skills is just beating on it over and over and over and over again until you get good. Don't expect your first article to be incredible. It's going to suck. Yeah. Don't expect your first YouTube video to be good. It's going to suck. Put stuff out there and continuously beat at it until you get good. And anybody you see who is quote unquote successful, the only way they got good is by just doing it over and over and over again until they got good.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, I'm the same way. I try to convince myself to, instead of looking at how many downloads this podcast gets, my goal is to finish an episode. If I finish an episode, that's all I need to do. I don't care about how it then performs, that's a different thing to care about at a different time. But to your point, the only way to get better is by making stuff. And if the goal is to make more of it, and that's how you measure your success, whether or not it's good and catches on will come on its own, but it doesn't happen, and you don't get good unless you start making stuff. So I think that's a great advice.
Yeah, and you don't want to don't be scared to fail, because you will. Everybody you know who is quote unquote successful has failed. The last thing you want to do is spend 2 years waiting to, thinking, you want to start a podcast. Let's go with that. Sitting there thinking about wanting to start a podcast and spending 2 years, but not actually doing it because you're so damn scared about, how do I get the absolute perfect episode? Whereas if you were to just have done it, if you were to actually just started recording one episode a week and spent 2 years on it, 2 years later, you got 100 episodes in. You're probably pretty good at that point.
Even if that idea was bad, you could now be skilled enough to go do another podcast that is a good idea,
Yeah. And you're going to, you continuously iterate yourself and create a better version. And the skills you learn, the skills, the relationships, the experience, that is way more important than putting out some kind of perfect version that you might have in your head. And again, this applies for literally everything in life, whether it's sports or business, or you need to get a girlfriend. Like, go ask 10 girls out. Like, can you get no's? Like, I'm sure, like, if you get to 20, you're probably getting, like, you only get good at that stuff by just continuously doing it.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to fail.
I think that is part of the idea where I originally got it was, I don't know if you ever heard of the rejection guy, the guy who was going around and he had like a list of 100 things he was going to ask people for, let them pump their gas and all sorts of things just to get better at rejection and stuff. And that's what I was, kind of thinking with the failure thing, is like, it's better to view that as a necessary stepping stone towards success, not a bad thing, but just, this is what I learned from this, and let me take that and apply it. And not having expectations that the first thing is going to be amazing or successful or whatever, or the 10th thing or whatever. I mean, you just got to keep doing it until you get there. And if you aren't there yet, you keep going. There's no real other way around it, because the alternative is just giving up. And that's something we certainly wouldn't want anyone to do. Yeah.
Building that muscle, that failure muscle, if it's weak, then you just, I have not heard of the failure guy, but I've heard of, other like challenges and people who have done stuff like that, where they've randomly gone up to people and asked them stuff, or they've like bargained with people. Like they would go into, I remember watching one video
or something.
Yeah. Like they went into like a 7-Eleven, and they were like it was some business guy, I think, where the person really struggled to like ask for a discount or something on services or whatever. And what the lesson was is to go into a 7-Eleven and be like, this pack of batteries for 2 batteries is like $7, but I only need 1. So can you open the pack and can I only buy 1 battery from you? Like, that's so weird, right?
Yeah.
But like you just like go to 10 7-Elevens and do that, and you'll probably get one that's like, yeah, okay, like really weird, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
But just like realizing that like something so weird like that, like getting a yes to that, just builds that muscle.
Yeah. And it is a muscle.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Being the muscle of being uncomfortable is very critical for trying to do anything worth living for.
Yeah, it's tough. I try to view fear as fuel, but there's a lot of times where I certainly don't live that, that I'm going towards the right thing and I should keep doing it because it's scary and new. But a lot of times, sometimes the old ways of resisting can creep up. So it's a lot of times a little 2 steps forward, 1 step back towards that thing. And whatever it is, a lot of times with me, it's trying to get over myself with selling things online or reaching out to people or direct marketing or whatever. All these things that I'm trying to do by myself because I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I'm like, oh, well, do I want to go interrupt everyone's day or my whole mailing list and whatever? And I got to get over that fact and try to think of it more of the, what would they miss out on if I didn't do that instead?
Yeah, just keep beating it. Yeah, just keep doing it, and eventually you'll get comfortable with it. I think that's the lesson there.
So where would you like to point people to these days to find out? Is it the education that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is on my website, dylanogline.com. I did recently put out a free book, The 6 Steps to a Six-Figure Agency. So if you go to dylanogline.com/6, all spelled out, SIX, you can download that book.
Cool. I'll make sure to put those links in so people don't have to spell it out or think too hard about it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you sharing some of those not so glamorous times and letting us have some insight into the story behind where you are these days.
Absolutely, man. It was an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me on the Failure Guy podcast. If you enjoyed it, feel free to tell somebody. And don't forget, always try to fail it till you nail it. Till next time.